Chapter 126. Washing Xiaobai's grievances. Came from Zhang Nanfeng's voice from the communication device Brother Cheng. After you went out today, I paid attention to the people on this street, and I didn't find anyone suspicious for the time being. He called up the information of the people in this street. Mu Zikang looked at Wei Ran again with a slight tenderness, then walked back into the room and said, "Well, if there is no accident here, it will be tomorrow. Let him take the cum with Xiaobai." Jiang Nanfeng seemed surprised. "Brother Cheng, do you already know who it is?" Mu Zikang's eyes flickered. You probably already knew it when you came here. The next afternoon, Wei Ran went downstairs and stopped in front of Aunt Lai's house, and then the wooden door opened from the inside. "Xiao Ran, I just wanted to find you. I have a precious thing that I can't lift by myself. It's too heavy. I just wanted to ask you to help me, can you?" Aunt Li looked tired and was surprised to see Wei Ran at the door of her house. Then he smiled and said with embarrassment. Wei Ran pursed her lips and smiled, of course. "Thank you, come in, come in." Seeing that she agreed, Aunt Li smiled even wider and hurriedly took a step back to let Wei Ran come in. Aunt Li's home is better constructed than her small wooden house, and she still studies architecture after all. The spacing is as practical and ingenious as possible. For example, the kitchen inside is painted with a comic version of the oil painting on the wooden door, which adds a bit of interest to life. It's just that the windows on both sides of the door are very abrupt, because it looks like it is sealed with a layer of cloth from the outside, but when you go inside, you can see that several wooden boards and the cloth used as curtains have been nailed to the windows. There is no light at all, and it is completely illuminated by the low-wattage electric lamp in the middle of the living room. There was a very faint odor wafting in the air. The living room has a wooden dining table and 2 chairs. She turned to look at Aunt Li, who was busy pouring water in the kitchen. "Aunt Li, are you taking care of your son full-time at home?" Aunt Li's voice came from the kitchen. "Yes, I will go out to work during the day, although my son also works, but you can't be idle, you have to move, right?" "That's right, Aunt Li, you are still young." Wei Ran sat down in one of the chairs. At this time, Aunt Li took out a transparent glass filled with half a cup of steaming white water and put it in front of her. "Drink some water first, Xiao Ran." "Thank you, by the way, Aunt Li, why haven't you seen your son for the past 2 days?" "Oh, he is busy, he is a good boy, and you are too a good boy." Aunt Li seemed to have a sad look on her face, and she said some strange words. At this time, there was commotion outside the door. Wei Ran glanced at the wooden window and stood up, just about to go over and open the door to see what happened. Aunt Li called out to stop her. "Xiao Ran, I'm in a hurry here and I have to go out to work later. Can you help me carry it first?" Wei Ran turned around and smiled back. "Okay." Aunt Li walked in front and led Wei Ran to the door. In the innermost cubicle, she pushed open a cabinet, and suddenly an iron cover for the cellar door appeared on the ground. "Xiao Ran, this is our family's secret cellar for storing materials, but I don't know why it can't be opened these 2 days, but the gate is a little rusty." Wei Ran's eyes were slightly cold, and she glanced at the cellar under her feet, and said, "So what should I do to help you?" Aunt Li squatted down and pointed to the handle. "Please help me pull the gate towards you." She showed a little excitement. "After pulling it away, I'll show you my baby." The corners of Wei Ran's mouth were slightly cold, and she squatted down. Pulling the gate and pulling it slowly, there is no rust at all, as Aunt Li said. Click. The cellar is open. Just as Wei Ran opened a gap, a strong rotten smell gushed out, making people sick. There was also a scratching sound from inside. Wei Ran smelled this rotten smell, and knew what was hidden inside and what was the treasure she was referring to. The iron cover was completely opened. Sure enough, there was a zombie under the cellar. As soon as the zombie smelled the scent of a living person, it immediately became more manic, but it couldn't make a sound. This cellar is about 1.5 meters wide and close to 3 meters deep. It is surrounded by soil, but the zombies are unable to climb up because of their stiff hands and feet. Aunt Lee looked up at Wei Ran almost crazily. Xiao Ran, this is my baby, my son. But Xiao Ran, he is hungry and keeps crying. You are so kind, please help Auntie. Okay, good. My son is very good at loving people, just a little bit. Then he stretched out his hand to push Wei Ran down. Suddenly, the wooden door was not only knocked open, but also knocked open the windows on both sides of the door. There was a terrifying lion's roar. The inside is really too small. After Xiao Bai knocked open the door, he has been hovering behind Muzikang outside the door. Aunt Lee was frightened by the sudden appearance of Xiao Bai. Her hand that was reaching out to push Wei Ran down was frozen in mid-air. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the huge Xiao Bai. This. Wei Ran stood up slowly with a cold face. Looking down at her, he said coldly, Aunt Lee, it is the only victim of this matter, that is, the snow lion demon you mentioned. This morning Chen Wei took the place where he lived on this street. After the person's information was retrieved, Wei Ran saw her information, and even the number of times she had entered and exited the base was clear, and her son had previously indicated that she hadn't entered or exited the base 3 months ago. And 3 months ago, he went in and out frequently, going out almost every 2 or 3 days. Aunt Lee's face was pale and she collapsed on the ground. Then he burst into tears. He is my son, what can I do? He came back in a hurry and said that he was scratched by a zombie, but it turned red. He didn't bleed or even break his skin, he was still infected. I'm afraid of the base. If the people found out, they would kill him. So I pulled out his tongue to prevent him from making any sound. Wei Ran's eyes were cold. So you killed those living people to feed them. I have become the son of a zombie. She already had a rough idea of her murder method, first approached her intentionally, then gained trust, and then tricked her into her home. Why choose to be alone? It is because such people have no relatives and friends. Even if they disappear, no one will suspect them, and the most important point is that people who have been alone for a long time need warmth urgently. However, I didn't expect that the next step would be the abyss. Then why did the last one choose the gang leader? This is the only difference from other victims. He has a family, relatives, and is even a person with a big goal. To move him is undoubtedly to bring this matter to the surface. Chapter 127. Ale. Who are you? Li Liwa was silent for a while, then slowly said the last person was an accident. I can only blame him for being drunk on this street that night. I don't know who he is. I only know that my son is hungry. He is uncomfortable. He used to be really a good boy, filial, well-behaved. Even now he has nothing and never complains. He is a very optimistic boy. It's not easy until he has supernatural powers. Li Liwa said in despair. Wei Ran looked down the cellar coldly. The zombie stretched out its hands and wanted to climb up. Its pale face had already been scratched and melted, and its gray pupils were wide open, as if trying to see the direction of life. She turned her eyes to Li Liwa and treated him coldly, bent slightly, and said very softly, my Xiao Bai was maliciously framed because of you, and I also feel uncomfortable. I will deal with your son and return his innocence. Li Liwa trembled. He looked at Wei Ran with inexplicable panic in his heart, and then understood. That snow lion is your pet. Wei Ran said coldly, it's my family. At this moment Chen Wei came in and pulled her out. Li Liwa kicked her arms and legs and yelled, No, I didn't spread those rumors. It wasn't me. You can't do that. After being dragged out, she was so panicked that she couldn't think of anything to say. Come on, that snow lion demon is coming to eat my child, come on. Muzikang walked up to her, hugged her slender shoulders, rubbed her lightly, and led her out of the cabin. Outside, everyone in Ping District Island had already been alarmed when Xiao Bai came here. At this time, the surrounding area was full of water, and there were many discussions. But because Xiao Bai was guarding the door, those people could only stand far away, for fear that the giant lion would come and bite them. So they didn't know the details of what happened in the cabin for the time being, They only saw Lai Liwa, who was usually amiable and helpful, was dragged out, yelling that the lion and demon cannibalized people. Now the crowd panicked. What? That lion is a man-eating goblin. I'll just say it. That's right. Run, run. Boom. A gunshot sounded suddenly, and quell all those who panic. Stand still and don't move, or my gun will go off. Gu Ming stood beside Xiao Bai with a pistol in his hand and said expressionlessly and coolly, "Zhang Nanfeng," said with a smile, "Don't be afraid, everyone. We are the management of the base. This time we are here to investigate the serial missing persons cases in the district island. When people leave, each of them must keep their eyes open and watch carefully." Gu Ming and Jiang Nanfeng sang together, forcing the crowd to calm down. Muzi took Wei ran out leisurely, and she gave Li Liwa a cold look who was shouting on the ground. "Your son has become a zombie. I originally wanted Bai to take care of your son himself, but I miss your son's heart, and I wanted to give your son a face." She paused and continued, "Since you don't want to, if you want, then let us deal with it." Li Liwa cried anxiously, No, I was wrong. I was wrong. I hid him, and I killed those 10 people to feed him. I don't know anything." But no one paid any attention to her. Chen Wei led someone to bring her son up from the cellar and lead him outside. Her son slowly appeared in front of everyone with stiff, rustling steps, and then panicked again. Jiang Nanfeng summoned several icicles to form a cage to trap the zombies in it. Smelling the smell of food, the zombie clung to the icicles that blocked him and began to bite recklessly. "What's going on? Why are there zombies here?" "Aunt Li is raising zombies. Could it be that those people's disappearances are all related to her?" Chen Wei pointed back at the zombies, the people who disappeared in Pink Island before, unfortunately, they all died and became the food of this zombie. "And the perpetrator is the person in front of you, Li Liwa. This zombie is her son. After her son was infected, he took advantage of the time difference of mutation and returned to the base immediately, and was later hidden by Li Wa." As soon as these words came out, the crowd was in an uproar. Everyone knows that the appetite of zombies is very big. Relying on it alone, no one can believe that Li Liwa, who used to be kind, is such a cruel woman. He continued. The manager of our temporary management base heard about this unsolved case and immediately rushed over to investigate the matter himself, and now the stolen goods have been recovered. As soon as Chen Wei finished speaking, Zhang Nanfeng seized the time to take the zombie let go, and the zombie moved towards the crowd as soon as it was free. The crowd screamed and backed away in fright. Xiao Bai was lying obediently beside Mu Zikang, but then he casually pointed at the zombie at Mu Zikang. Suddenly, Xiao Bai jumped up from behind the zombie and threw him to the ground, and in an instant his sharp claws tore the zombie into pieces. Sun Li Lihoa immediately slumped to the ground and passed out. Wei Ran just kept a cold face, without any embarrassment. Once you become a zombie, you will no longer be a human being and lose all consciousness. In layman's terms, it's just a walking corpse that exists to eat. Originally, Wei Ran wanted to kill the zombies in the cabin, but Li Liwa still refused to repent. And in full view, spreading the truth is the best way to dispel rumors. The people in Ping District Island were surprised to see Xiao Bai kill the zombie, and then obediently returned to Mu Zikang's side and squatted down, another burst of exclamation. "This snow lion is so obedient. Who spread the rumor that this lion can bite and eat people? We have been standing here for so long just now and we haven't seen any interest in it." Wei Ran took 2 steps forward, said to everyone with a serious face, "This snow lion is our family, not a goblin, but has supernatural powers. It doesn't eat people, because only aliens can have a tricky appetite for it. I don't know where the rumors came from, where did it come out, but Xiao Bai often walked around the crowded market in the center of the base and never hurt anyone. Almost the entire base knew that my Xiao Bai was a war lion, and it fought side by side with the southern border base. Who would, if you have any doubts, raise them now?" When the people on the island in Ping District heard Wei Ran's words, no one who had any objections dared to speak out. They, a group of ordinary people without supernatural powers, know what war means, which is to protect the southern border base from being invaded by aliens and zombies, or even invaded by foreign enemies. Besides, now that the case has been solved, the zombies have been wiped out, and the biggest source of fear has been eliminated. What everyone thinks in their hearts is that they can continue to live in the base with peace of mind. Who are you? How dare you break into Pink Island to make trouble? A sudden and ferocious voice cut through the silence. Mu Zikang and Wei Ran turned to the side of the voice, only to see a dozen or so people rushing towards this side angrily. Chapter 128. Competition for territory? When the onlookers saw that group of people, they immediately backed away for fear of getting into trouble. Wei Ran looked at the dozen or so people and said, "Brother, these people all have supernatural powers. How many of them are not low?" Mu Zikang nodded. Du Ming, Zhang Nanfeng, and Chen Wei returned to Mu Zikang's left and right sides, and the 5 or 6 people brought by Chen Wei stood behind them, and the momentum was like a rainbow, which really seemed to be a group fight. A dozen or so people over there were arrogant and domineering, holding knives and sticks, and stopped 3 meters in front of Mu Zikang and his party. The bald head in the middle with the swollen face took an ordinary pistol, shaking the fat on his cheeks, and said viciously, "Who are you? Didn't you know that this is my territory, Yan Kunda? If you want to survive here, you must first pass Lao Tsizu. Even the people from the base don't dare to come here to provoke me. You don't even have supernatural powers, and you dare to come and grab the territory with me." The movement just now made these people think that Mu Zikang and the others were fighting for the territory people. But the person who went to report first only saw the first half and didn't see the second half, otherwise he wouldn't have asked Mu Zikang who they were and said they had no powers. After all, Chen Wei had already said before that they were the management of the base, and Zhang Nanfeng also showed his hand. Wei Ran couldn't help but lowered her head and smiled. A person next to Yan Mingda pointed at Wei Ran in a rough voice. "Hey, what are you laughing at, you bitch?" She raised her eyes with a pure face. "You are so good at laughing. Even the people in the base dare not deal with you." The man climaxed himself. "This place has been assigned to our Lord Kun from the beginning, and your sudden entry has angered our brother Kun. If you want to calm this matter, you have to take out all your supplies." Yan Mingda, seeing Xiao Bai, who was lying on his stomach next to Mu Zikang chatting and lying on his stomach, his eyes lit up immediately. "Not only the supplies, but also the lion must belong to me." Wei Ran glanced at the lazy Xiao Bai, then looked back at Yan Kunda and said earnestly, "It's not that I'm reluctant to give it to you, but I'm really afraid that you won't be able to control it. It's very fierce." He pointed his pistol at Wei Ran. "If you don't want to give it, don't even think about getting out of here alive." Mu Zikang pulled Wei Ran back behind him, looked at Yan Kunda sideways with clear eyes, patted Zhao Bai's strong back casually, and said coldly, "Go and play, don't go too far." From the moment Yan Kunda pointed the gun at Wei Ran, Gu Mingzhan Nanfeng and Chen Wei said the same thing in their hearts. "It's okay if you can die." But Mu Zikang's sentence, "don't go too far," is probably hanging. Wei Ran poked out half of his head from Mu Zikang's shoulder, blinked his clear and pure eyes and looked at Yan Kunda. "I have warned you, take care." Jiang Nanfeng watched from a distance. People waved their hands and shouted, "Keep away, and you won't be compensated for." The injury. Xiao Bai stood up excitedly after being allowed. Yan Kunda thought that Mu Zikang and the others had succumbed to him and just wanted to say a few words, but turned around and saw that Mu Zikang had already led Wei Ran and his party back far behind. He thought that Mu Zikang wanted to run away, when he just wanted to ask someone to catch Mu Zikang and the others. Suddenly, Xiao Bai quickly ran towards Yan Kunda and the others, and when he was 1 meter away from them, he jumped into the air and seemed to be about to pounce on Yan Kunda and his group. Yan Kunda reacted quickly and immediately summoned the thunderbolt to Xiao Bai, but Xiao Bai disappeared before the thunderbolt struck. One of them asked Brother Kun, "Why is this snow lion gone? Just fell. A. Suddenly, several screams sounded from behind. Yan Kunda and his group hurriedly turned their heads. I saw that the last few people were suspended in the air strangely, and were suddenly thrown high into the sky, but they seemed to be caught when they fell. After repeating this several times, the last time Xiao Bai appeared with snow-white wings waving 4 meters from the ground, and then disappeared suddenly, causing those people to fall straight to the ground and knock their heads until they passed out. Now it's calm again. The person next to him trembled and tugged at Yan Kunda. Brother Kun, what's going on? This lion is invisible and can fly, and its ability is so high, how can there be animals with abilities? Yan Kunda, shaking off the man's hand, he gritted his teeth and said, I don't know. No wonder the girl said this lion is fierce. I must get this rare species was hit by something violently, flew several meters away, hit a tree before stopping, but the person also lost consciousness. Next, that group of people were attacked by unknown means, but it was still unclear who attacked and how. If you can't see it, you can't fight back. You can only wait passively for others to attack. Yan Kunda's group retreated all the way to an open place. Soon only Yan Kunda was left. At this moment he was also flustered. At this moment, Xiao Bai appeared not far away. Yan Kunda immediately summoned the thunder and struck at Xiao Bai. A burst of thunder flashed and there was a deafening bang. He thought he had solved Xiao Bai and sneered fight with Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu is the first batch of people who awaken supernatural powers, and their level is very high. But he was not happy for too long, because the thunder smoke was about to clear away. At that time he seemed to vaguely see a shining figure. Yan Kunda squinted his eyes hard to see himself more clearly. His eyes were full of disbelief and he stepped back step by step. Impossible. How is it possible? How can it have 3 kinds of abilities? Then he used the thunder of the prehistoric power indiscriminately, but it was still in the form of an indestructible diamond that could not hurt a single bit the next Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai walked towards him slowly. From the bottom of his heart, Yan Kunda felt the fear of being lingering. Suddenly when he saw Wei Ran, who was watching the bustle from a distance and didn't think it was a big deal, he immediately became furious and threw a lightning strike at Wei Ran. But he didn't expect that his thunder had just been absorbed and counteracted by another super strong thunder vortex that suddenly appeared. In an instant, the thunder vortex disappeared again, as if the scene just now did not exist. Horror flashed across his face. Is this the thunder vortex? This is not an advanced skill of the lightning power, it is just one of the common skills in the high level, but it is a skill that even the high-level power user may not be able to successfully summon. This skill extremely tests the anticipation ability and control ability of the lightning-type supernatural power user. Because even if the opponent's attack moves are predicted and the thunder vortex is called, but the ability is insufficient and it loses control, the thunder vortex will suck everything into the vortex and disappear. In other words, those who can use the thunder vortex and can retract it freely are the ones who must not be messed with. He felt a chill in his heart, turned around and immediately ran back, but was knocked down by Xiao Bai's claw, got up immediately and ran a few steps, and was hit by Xiao Bai forcefully and flew towards the wooden pillar. The wooden pillars were all broken. Yan Kunda also fell to the ground and rolled, unable to get up at all. Xiao Bai's impact broke 6 of his ribs. It still wants to play but still remembers those 3 words of music hang. Don't be too. Chapter 129. If you dare to look at the dogs outside, try. Mu Zikang and Wei ran to the side of Yan Kunda. Xiao Bai retreats to his side. He was condescending and said coldly, "You said the people in the base dare not provoke you. I'm going to try today. Guming, since he is in the same department as you, then teach him how to use mine." Guming's eyes flickered with interest, and he replied okay. Although the people on Ping District Island hid far away, they didn't miss any exciting scenes. Seeing a single lion can knock down the biggest bully gang, come out one after another to applaud and applaud and applaud. Mu Zikang took 2 steps forward with his long legs. His eyes were sharp, and he made a cold voice. the southern border base strictly prohibits the collection of materials in various names in private. The base currently does not collect any materials except for land lease materials. No one is allowed to take the land as their own. All the land here is owned by the southern border base, who plotted land privately in an attempt to become independent. He paused and looked around the crowd with cold eyes. Bitter and cold every word. Pick off the tendons of the limbs and throw them out of the southern border base. As soon as the words fell, a few flashes of lightning passed over there, accompanied by ah-ha-hey-shet-shet, a miserable and creepy cry sounded. The people in Ping District Island hadn't come out of the awe of Music Hung's strong and unquestionable kingly aura, and they were panicked by the screams again and again. He looked towards the screaming sound. In Gu Ming's hand he held the thunder knife that Jin Lei transformed into. And Yan Kunda was lying on the ground, with his hands and feet overflowing with thick blood, screaming in his mouth, "Ah, my hands and feet." Mu Ziking said the last sentence, and the next in seconds, there will be real examples as a warning. This is deeper than any harsh words. Since Ping District Island was opened up for ordinary people to live in, not only people with supernatural powers, but also ordinary people want to occupy it. On the same day, Mu Ziking asked Chen Wei to dismantle the office for collecting supplies in the market in front of the people of Ping District Island, and included Ping District Island in the patrol area, requiring the patrol team to come over every day for regular inspections and rectification. The public security management of Ping District Island has risen sharply and improved. Then Mu Ziking sent people to connect the water pipes to each household and improve the infrastructure. Mu Zi followed this series of instructions and managed to subdue the people in Ping District Island. After all, most people want to live and work in peace and contentment. So the following announcement of the specific land lease materials for Ping District Island was announced, and everyone felt that the payment was as it should be, and there was no second word. Now both supernatural beings and ordinary people have smoothly transitioned through the adaptation period of the apocalypse. It is not appropriate to continue to be exempt from the land lease materials that need to be handed in here. People's hearts are not enough to swallow elephants. Failure to draw a clear line will lead to endless troubles. Yan Kunda was directly thrown out of the base in full view of everyone, and left to fend for himself. The rest were locked in the dungeon, waiting for the work of planting and transplanting rice seedlings not long after. The incident on Ping District Island caused Mu Ziking to spread the word so fiercely that every corner of the base was miraculous. For a while, what people talked about after dinner and tea was Mu Ziking's rectification. Li Liua tore her own clothes into strips in the cell, tied them together and made a rope to hang herself. Jiang Namfeng also felt a little sad when he heard it. He asked Gu Ming beside him, "If I become a zombie, will you keep me like this?" Wei Ran was also curious about Gu Ming's answer, because she felt that Gu Ming, who had a slightly dark personality, would be paranoid to keep Zhang Yanfeng. But Gu Ming's answer was the opposite. "I will kill you and die with you." This answer was beyond everyone's expectations, but they were not surprised at all. Wei Ran turned to look at Mu Ziking, who was in front of him. Any strong and arrogant person will not allow himself to be a walking dead. I'll lose everything. Would rather die. Office. Say, on the 15th floor. Wei Ran lay on the sofa reading a book and waited for Mu Ziking. Mu Ziking was quite busy today, and he didn't get away from a pile of work until almost 10 o'clock in the evening. Chen Wei had asked him to send him back a long time ago. When he held Wei Ran's hand in the elevator and was about to press the parking lot on the negative floor, Wei Ran stopped him otherwise. "Let's go back. It seems that I have never tried to take a walk in the base at this time." Mu Ziking, she raised her eyes and flashed a smile. "Are you sure?" Wei Ran blinked her eyes and nodded. In the dark night, the quiet southern base is even more quiet and cozy under the illumination of warm-colored street lamps. The dark and hazy night in late autumn is very cool. Mu Ziking took off his thin coat and put it on Wei Ran's slender shoulders, but Wei Ran was still unwilling. He frowned slightly and lowered his face slightly wearing. Although Wei Ran's physique was different from ordinary people, she was the worst among them. Oh! She pursed her lips and could only obediently put on her clothes. Patrols in the office area are relatively frequent, and Music King took Wei Ran to walk for a while, before encountering a team of patrols. Hello, Mr. Mew. Hello, Miss Wei. Music King just nodded slightly. Wei Ran smiled and replied softly, "It's all good." Almost everyone who has patrolled here knows that there is a little woman next to Music King who is almost spoiled, and if anyone touches this little woman for the slightest bit, that would be bad luck. Therefore, almost everyone in the central area of the base knew about Wei Ran. After Music King took Wei Ran out of the office area, the streetlights were not so dense, they were almost all in 2s and 3s. Dim streetlights shining on the forest path, it is another kind of feeling. Brother, you used to teleport back and forth, or you were driving, and you didn't take a good look at the night scene here. In fact, it's good once in a while. Music King held her hand tightly with a smile on his lips. "Hand, do you like it? Then I can walk back and forth with you every day, as long as you don't cry tired." It takes almost 30 minutes to drive from Yaihe Island to the Nanjing office area, let alone walk. It must have been more than an hour's walk. Wei Ran shook her head violently. "I don't want it. It's such a long way, and if you watch things you like a lot, you'll get tired of them. You need to see more new people and things." Music King froze suddenly when he heard these words, pace. Wei Ran asked confusedly, "What's the matter?" He turned his eyes to look at her sinisterly. "Will you get tired of watching too much? Watching more fresh people?" She opened her eyes and covered her small mouth with her hand. "It's over, I said the wrong thing." Her black pearl-like eyes slid around a few times. No matter what happened, she jumped onto Music King's body like a sloth. His hands were wrapped around the back of his neck, his legs were wrapped around his strong waist, and the pink lips kissed the thin and tight lips. Jiao Didi acted coquettishly. "What's the difference? My brother is the person I love the most, and I like to pester him. Because Music King is my sky, my land, and my pillar." Muzi, whose hair was instantly smooth, supported her hips and walked into a small path next to her. Her face softened instantly, but she still spoke vicious words. "Dare to look at the dog outside, try it." Wei Ran Qiao smiled and hung Qiangxi on him. Lie on his neck and laugh. Chapter 130. The Omnipotent Elder Brother. Muzi supported her and walked for a long time. Only then did she realize that she was walking a lonely path. And it's still a dark path with no street lights. It's really too dark. Wei Ran hugged Music King tightly, looking at the darkness around him. He couldn't see his fingers. "Brother, did you go the wrong way?" Music King threw her up. "This is the shortest way home. If you really follow the main road, you don't have to cry." Then he whispered into Wei Ran's ear. "And there is a small lake on this road. The scenery is good, no one knows about it, and it's quiet enough." Wei Ran smiled coquettishly. "I hate." When she walked to the lake full of expectations, what did she think it would be like? Good scenery, but I didn't expect it to be still dark. She curled her lips. "Brother, this is the beautiful scenery you said, and you can hardly see people clearly." Music King laughed in a low voice. Occasionally teasing Wei Ran is Music King's leisure hobby. This small lake is actually an artificial lake that has not yet been completed, but because of the end of the world, it has been stranded indefinitely, so there is no good scenery here. At most, the vegetation next to the path has different colors of leaves due to late autumn, and some of them can be seen at a glance. But this shortcut to Yaihe Island is true, and the time can be shortened by more than 40 minutes. This was discovered by Music King in the past. Music King moved forward to hold Wei Ran, and smiled lightly. "It's already night now. Even if there is a good view and the moon hasn't come out tonight, how can you see anything clearly?" Wei Ran, who was fooled, thought to himself, "I think it's the same reason. It's all black and white. But it's so dark, I can't even see where the road is now. How do we go?" Music King said lightly, "I can see clearly." Wei Ran suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at him in surprise. Have you recovered your abilities? It is Mu Zikang's ability to see as clearly as during the day at night, but now that his abilities are temporarily lost, then what if ordinary people are no different, but he actually said that he can see clearly now? The only explanation is that he has recovered his abilities. Mu Zikang nodded slightly. It took 2 days to recover slowly. Wei Ran hurriedly said, don't use supernatural powers, this kind of scouting is not good, you have to wait until the supernatural powers are fully restored to full health before doing it again. Use it. Why didn't you tell me? No, I'll take you in and recuperate for a few days until the ability recovers, otherwise you will secretly use the ability here again. Saying that, he was going to hold Mu Zikang back. His hand gestured to enter the secret realm. With a hidden smile in his eyes, Mu Zikang quickly stopped her. I've been too busy these 2 days, so I forgot about it. Don't worry, I don't use supernatural powers, I just can see better than normal people at night. And even if we want to go in, we have to tell Chen Wei and the others, or we will leave without saying a word, thinking that something is wrong with us when. He said this, Wei Ran felt that he was rash. Since Mu Zikang temporarily lost his ability, he has become the special protection of Gu Ming and the others. He has to follow him closely wherever he goes. If he suddenly disappears for no reason, it will frighten them. Wei Ran took his hand and said eagerly, hurry up, let's go back and talk to them before we leave. Mu Zikang Changni had no choice but to be dragged away by her. Okay, I will listen to you wherever we go. Yes. After explaining to Chen Wei about the work to be carried out later, and explaining to Gu Ming and the others what they should pay attention to during his absence, Mu Zikang and Wei Ran went to the secret realm to recuperate. Because time in the secret realm has no concept of time, Mu Zikang's ability to restore full blood as soon as possible is as fast as traveling thousands of miles a day. Wei Ran originally wanted him to stay inside until his abilities recovered when he was recovering, but because there were too many things in the base that required him to make decisions, he had to give up and finally let him recover slowly. Brother, I tried planting rice before, and now I can harvest it. Wei Ran pointed to the golden rice field. This is a small paddy field she had previously opened up in a puddle, and she wanted to see if it could be successfully planted. I didn't expect that the secret realm could adapt to any plant. But after all, there is a limit to the manpower to try, and there is not much to plant. Mu Zikang rolled up his trousers, took the sickle and bent down to harvest without changing his face. Wei Ran shouted joyfully from the side, wow. Brother is so powerful he can do anything. Mu Zikang lowered his head and smiled helplessly. Although he has never harvested rice, he has seen the documentary and probably knows how to do it. Besides, Wei Ran didn't grow much rice, and the harvest was soon finished. Mu Zikang, whose hands and feet were covered with mud, went into the river ahead to wash. Wei Ran from behind made trouble again. Brother, there is still mud here and there. Ha ha ha, brother, you are so stupid. Mu Zikang looked at her quietly, speechless. Feeling something was wrong, Wei Ran turned around and raised her legs to run, but was suddenly pulled into the clear river by Mu Zikang behind her. Plop. She fell into the river and wanted to swim out of the water, but her feet were grabbed and dragged into the deep water. Mu Zikang swam to her side from below and hugged her, struggling. When she was about to suffocate, Mu Zikang hugged her and rushed out of the river. Even the cold water couldn't resist her flushed cheeks. But before he could take a few breaths, Mu Zikang swam over again and stretched out his hand to hold the back of her neck tightly, and rubbed against her again. Mu Zikang tore off her collar, kissed softly on her slender and fair shoulders, and slowly sank into the water again. Wei Ran raised her jawline. The surrounding air is filled with sweetness. Suddenly, she was suddenly pushed to the river by Mu Zikang. Immediately, he propped up the riverside with his strong arms, turned over quickly on the shore, and easily picked up the confused Wei Ran and walked quickly to the grass next to him. Put her lightly on the soft grass, that is, cover. He slowly stroked the delicate white skin, loving it, whispering in Wei Ran's ear. It seemed that he was talking and asking something. But how could he wait for her to answer whether he would like it or not? Don't look like he usually spoils Wei Ran with no bottom line, but when it comes to bed matters, Muzi King has always been very tough. She couldn't resist it. Wei Ran's long curled eyelashes quivered lightly like feathers, her soft pancreas flexed and grabbed his back. The slender and clean fingers pinched her chin. It rang in his ears over and over again. The pleasant sweetness. Muzi King was saying something that made people blush again. The blushing Wei Ran hurriedly covered his thin lips. But still unable to resist the rest of the words, he whispered close to her ear, but only Wei Ran could hear a few words. Escaped but was caught again. And finally with him. Seemed to be wiped out. Chapter 131. As long as Wei Ran was by his side, Muzi King carried Wei Ran, who was drowsy and drenched, back to the small bamboo house and put her into the hot spring to soak. Wei Ran, who was sore all over, sighed comfortably. Muzi King went into the small bamboo house and took out a large bath towel and home clothes and put them on a long bamboo bench behind the screen. Seeing that Wei Ran, who was still sleepy, was leaning comfortably on the smooth stone wall in the hot spring and was playing with his hands patting the water surface with great interest. He could feel his heart rippling, and then he also poured into it. Wei Ran leaned on her warm and broad chest, enjoying Muzi King's kneading massage, but she was a little panting after kneading. She tilted her head slightly, looked up at Muzi King's neck with her half-closed eyes and wrapped her hands behind her, inserting her pale fingers into his chestnut hair. Muzi King kissed the crimson color at the corners of her eyes brokenly. Microwave sparkling, ripples continue. With a satisfied face, Muzi King carried the already limp Wei Ran out of the water, wiped off the water on her body, and put on comfortable home clothes. But she was not allowed to wear underwear, and said in a pretentious manner, "It's just you and me here, you don't need to wear it. It will make you uncomfortable if it's too tight." Wei Ran was speechless and looked at Muzi King. I really can't complain about him. This person is obviously for herself. Why is her brother becoming more and more dishonest? Muzi King, who laughed a few times in a low voice, put her on the soft quilt bed. Knowing that she had been tossed hard just now, he hugged her and coaxed her softly. Wei Ran put Muzi King's arm on her and slowly fell asleep past. Shh, 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 shh. 3 cold arrows shot from a distance at the same time. Accurately shoot the wild boar and 2 wild sheep in front of you. Brother, I hit it. Ha ha ha, I learned 4 fingers and 3 arrows. Wei Ran took the special black bow and arrow that Muzi King gave her and pointed it there with great interest. Muzi King walked out slowly from behind her, with a faint smile in his eyes, stroked her seaweed like dark, curly long hair, and said softly, Ran is so powerful after a while. It's going to surpass me. Wei Ran raised her head and laughed a few times, then suddenly remembered something. This wild sheep is so big, it can be sent to Shangguan Ling. Suddenly he was upset and pressed her head, turning her face to him. She gritted her teeth with an unhappy face and said, "What? What do you want to do when you say in front of your husband that you want to give something to another man?" She shook Muzi King's arm and smiled happily. He. How can I practiced archery in the secret realm, and I couldn't finish eating so many small animals. I gave it to the front line for the sake of my brother. Send condolences. Muzi King, who was amused by her, raised his hand, flexed his index finger and scraped the bridge of her high nose, and said dotingly, "You are the only one who can coax me with this small mouth." Wei Ran wrinkled her nose at him, pursed her lips and smiled lightly. She also missed Yan Yang and the others, so she said to Muzi King, "Let's go out later, it's probably been half a month outside." Muzi King nodded slightly. "It's up to you to decide." He had already recovered his powers and was full of blood. He should have gone out after recovery, but he was very happy to see Wei Ran in the secret realm, so he stayed with her for a while longer. The secret realm is really exciting, nostalgic for going back and forth. There are only Muzi King and Wei Ran, a paradise dedicated to the 2 of them. Anyway, the affairs of the base will not be in a hurry for a while, and I also explained to Chen Wei what he should do first during his absence. Muzi King, he didn't want to ask to go out by himself, didn't want to see Wei Ran's disappointed eyes, not at all. For him it was fine, anywhere, and the most important thing was that Wei Ran was by his side. So he waited for Wei Ran to play. After that, he brought it up by himself, because he knew that after living in the secret realm for a long time, she would also miss the noise of Gu Ming and the others outside. When Mu Zikang and Wei Ran went out to Yihe Island, it was already 15 days later. Wei Ran put some of the freshly picked fruits from the secret place in the refrigerator to chill, so that Yan Yang and the others could eat fresh fruits anytime. She was putting things in the kitchen when she heard Chen Wei say something to Mu Zikang outside. Brother Cheng, Gao Ding has received news that Bai Angguo is going to marry Bai Xinzi to Cheng Shuxian on the 26th of this month. Wei Ran came out of the kitchen and sat next to Mu Zikang, secretly pushed the date in his heart, and snorted the 26th. Isn't it 3 days later? The base meeting will also be held in 5 days. He really knows how to count the days. Mu Zikang sat on the sofa. Calm and composed. Bai Angguo is in a hurry to send his daughter out at this juncture, just hoping to be tough at the base meeting. After all, the base meeting is his last chance. He and the Zhuzhong base, the reason why we teamed up to drag Shengguan Ling back, is because besides Shengguan Ling, he has the most support in the base, so he is very confident. Su Yi sat aside and sneered during this time. The people on our side, everything is ready, and we will officially start work on the day of the base meeting. Yan Yang played with a plant in her hand and slightly curled her mouth. Now all the plants in the entire southern base are under my supervision. Gu next to Ming and Jiangnan Feng, one stood casually leaning against the wall, playing with the special long and thin knife, and the other played with the ice blade with Erlang's legs crossed, with a calm expression on their faces. I'm waiting under the leadership of Mu Zikang. These people have been able to remain orderly even in his absence, handling their own affairs independently. Chen Wei looked at Mu Zikang. Everything is ready. Mu Zikang's Juni face was cold. His eyes looked coldly out of the window. Although Shengguan Ling persuaded and supported him to become the leader of the base from the very beginning, those people were still not the ones who followed him and put himself first. Therefore, if you want to truly stand independently among others, you must have your own people. From the moment Mu Zikang became the leader of the southern base, he has already planned every step. Southern base, office building. Just as Mu Zikang and Wei Ran were about to press the elevator up, they were stopped by Bai Xinzi. Mr. Mu, can we talk? Wei Ran looked back and saw Bai Xinzi standing not far away, visibly haggard. And Mu Zikang, who was cold and aggressive beside her, just gave her a cold look, without saying a word, turned around while holding Wei Ran's hand, and was about to walk into the elevator. Knowing the answer, Bai Xinzi still didn't give up, and walked forward a few steps quickly. Mr. Mu Zikang, I will be married off by my father tomorrow. Mu Zikang stopped walking, turned his head and looked sideways at her. Bai Xinzi suddenly felt a little joy in her heart. But in an instant he was thrown into the abyss by his cold sentence. Then, congratulations. Wei Ran couldn't help but let out a soft sigh when she saw Bai Xinzi crying before entering the elevator. Mu Zikang looked down at her. What's the matter? She squeezed his hand tightly. I just feel that Bai Xinzi is quite pitiful, being treated like a tool by her father. Although the entanglement with her has not been put on the table, everyone knows that it is impossible for Bai Angguo to marry her blatantly and finally send her over quietly in the end. Bai Xinzi's ending was also a love affair. Chapter 132. At the base meeting. She rested her chin on his warm and reliable chest, looked at Mu Zikang with a frown and said, "So I am so happy to have you protecting me." The clearly slender fingers pinched her chin and shook it gently. It's good that you know. Do you want to serve me well tonight? Wei Ran flushed with shame on her fair little face, and raised her hand to hammer at he, and then whispered something in his ear. At this moment, the elevator door opened, and Mu Zikang hugged her tightly, leaving behind a deep and magnetic voice. That's what you said. Don't beg for mercy like last time. I won't let you go tonight. Bai Xinzi was sent there quietly by Bai Angguo, just as Wei Ran said, and Bai Angguo was right. The inside said that Bai Xinzi had gone outside to practice and do the task. I heard that Bai Xinzi had quarreled and even went on a hunger strike, but in front of an old fox like Bai Angguo who has experienced big storms, he couldn't make a fuss at all. The saddest thing in the last days is nothing more than this. A woman is given as a gift of sophistication, and she is still treated like this by her closest relatives. Bai Xinzi is also a pitiful person. On the second day after Bai Xinzi went to the Jichang base, there were suddenly many more people wandering and camping in the desert of the southern base, but they kept a safe distance from the southern base. Su Yugai knocked on the door of Mu Ziking's office, walked up to Mu Ziking and said, "Brother Chung, we have sent people with special abilities to investigate clearly. The people in the desert are from the Jichang base, and they have already been deployed." Mu Ziking nodded, and the corner of his mouth was filled with remnants. "Very well. Tell the people below that they don't have to show mercy, and they can play as they like and according to the plan. Let Yan Ying focus on the office building, extend 5 kilometers away and closely monitor. If there is any suspicious person, deal with it yourself." Su Yi nodded and replied okay, then he turned and went out again. Wei Ran stood in front of the window, looked at the scenery outside and said something insignificant. "The windows here all have sills, and the deck chairs are placed here so they block the sunlight." Mu Zikang came up from behind and hugged her. Looking at her slender waist, resting her chin on her slender shoulders, she said slowly, "Tomorrow, I will have someone repair this place again and remove all the windowsills you don't like." She turned her head and stared at Mu Zikang, kissed the corner of his eye with deep meaning. Tomorrow. Her Mu Zikang is the king of the southern base. The next day, the entire southern base was enveloped in a tense atmosphere. Everyone knows that today's base meeting is different from the previous summary meeting. Although Sheng Wanling is still the nominal leader of the base, it does not prevent today from being a big day about the leader's death. So the base has issued a notice a few days ago to inform all the people in the base. During the base meeting, unless it is necessary, you are not allowed to go out. For the smooth progress of the meeting, martial law will be implemented until the end of the meeting. Mu Zikang and Wei Ran, followed by Gu Ming and others, walked in from the door of the conference office. The number of people was more than several times smaller than that brought by Bai Angguo and the other old chiefs, but they were still aggressive and not weaker than any of the parties present, even more aggressive than them. The meeting room is very large. After all, it used to be the meeting room of the county department. There is also a space reserved in the middle for the usual staff of all parties to sort out and collect materials from all parties. At this time, Bai Angguo and the other 3 old chiefs had already sat on one side, waiting for the meeting to start. When Mu Zikang walked in elegantly with his hands in his trouser pockets and his long legs, Bai Angguo stared at Mu Zikang with a gloomy expression and said with a blunt smile, "Mr. Mu, we've all been here for a while. Why did you come here?" The implication is, why is your spectrum so big you want these old leaders to wait for you? After hearing Bai Angguo's words, the other 3's complexions suddenly turned dark. They all felt that what Bai Angguo said was right. No, there is no one who makes the old leader wait for him who is nothing. Mu Zikang walked to his seat indifferently and calmly, pulled out the chair and sat down calmly, adjusted his cuffs, glanced at his watch casually, and said coldly, "I don't have the habit of arriving an hour early. I think you are here, you have to get used to my habit in the days to come." The 3 old chiefs were even more unhappy now. This is not to say that if you like to come early, if you come early, you will wait by yourself. Bai Angguo calmed down, introduced the topic and continued. Today's base meeting is just a summary in the past, but Ah Ling won't come back today. I heard that he plans to stay away all the time and he may rarely come back, right? Mu Zichang tapped the table with his fingers and said, "Yes, he has a satellite call and wants to talk to you." He glanced at Chen Wei, who immediately dialed Sheng Wanling and let go after the call was connected. After the connection is made, connect the device to amplify the sound. Sheng Wanling's dignified voice sounded old chiefs. This time at the base meeting, Sheng Wanling himself was tied up in the front line and failed to show up as scheduled. Later, he will give a written report to all the old chiefs. This is the biggest disadvantage of the county people. Knowing that these people on the opposite side have different ideas, but as long as they are still sitting here for a day, the word respect has been engraved in their bones. Bai Angguo leaned towards the satellite phone, first asked how Sheng Wanling was doing, and after a few pleasantries, he introduced the topic. Mr. Gangmu said that you will be away for a long time in the future. What do you plan to do? Sheng Guanling was silent for a while and said, I don't want to be here, and I know that I lack this kind of brain-biased management ability. The position of leader is not suitable for me, so I temporarily handed it over to me before I came out. Musiking. I now announce that I will formally step down as the leader of the southern border base from today onwards. As for the successor, I will no longer participate in the discussion. I will follow the result and absolutely obey. When Sheng Guanling said this, it was true. Bai Angguo and the other three were stunned. After all, Sheng Guanling pushed Mu Ziking to replace him against all opinions before, so why did he suddenly silently support Mu Ziking at this extremely important juncture? Bai Angguo squinted his wrinkled half-lidded eyelids and thought, did they fall out? But the satellite phone just now was dialed by Mu Ziking, so this reason cannot be established. Then, why did Sheng Guanling stop there? Without Sheng Guanling's support, Mu Ziking would have no chance of winning. After all, no one agrees with Mu Ziking's superiors, and there are very few inferiors. He saw that Mu Ziking was not at all surprised by Sheng Guanling's words, and he was still calm. Even the people around him were the same. After Bai Angguo hung up Sheng Guanling's satellite phone, he tentatively said to Mu Ziking, Ling said that he stepped down as the leader of the southern border base, which means that his previous appointment of you to temporarily manage the southern border is no longer counted. Chapter 133. Southern Base Conference 2. Mu Zicheng and Ruosu calmly nodded. Zhen Yi's face was full of indifference, and said, that's right, Sheng Guanling's previous agreement to let me temporarily act as the base leader ends here. Bai Angguo heard Mu Ziking also said the same thing, thinking that Mu Ziking might have given up, because he knew he couldn't compete. I sneered in my heart. He lifted his eyelids covered with crow's feet and flashed the coldness, but on the surface he put on an amiable face towards Mu Ziking. Mr. Mu, you have worked hard during the days when Ling is not around. Mr. Mu managed the southern border base in an orderly manner. But today Ling has resigned from office, and you also said that the interim agreement between you and Ling has ended, so I would like to trouble Chief Mu to withdraw from the leader's office on the 15th floor today. Still, you can live in Yehi Island if you want, but you must pay the corresponding rental materials, otherwise we will not be able to explain to everyone. The other three old chiefs nodded in agreement with Bai Angguo. That's right, the rules can't be broken. These four people usually don't see such unity, it's always because of interests. After Sheng Guanling resigned, he must not let other irrelevant personnel take up the post, otherwise they will not have such a leisurely life in the future, and the rights in their hands may also be deprived. What's more, Sheng Guanling was unwilling to be the leader, let alone the others. Sitting next to Mu Ziking, Wei Ran suddenly smiled. One of the old chiefs felt that today's meeting was solemn, but Wei Ran, a young girl, dared to despise him. He yelled, "What are you laughing at?" Wei Ran raised her eyes sharply and turned to the old chief, who accused her. What you are laughing at is that the memories of the four present here have deteriorated a lot. Bai Angguo's expression darkened. What does Miss Wei mean? Wei Ran looked at Bai Angguo and said coldly, what did we bring to the southern border base, and why Yehi Highland belongs to and is independent from us? Everyone will clearly forget this. The other three, the old chief's expression changed. This thing is indeed forgotten. But Bai Angguo is a person who has experienced big scenes. He pretended to be stunned and then his face remained normal. Is there such a thing? We never knew about it, and Ling never explained it. Without documents and instructions, all of this it's hard to say, and now Ling is not the leader of the base, only US old guys are left, so he has to let go of the verbal agreement with you. Wei Ran snorted and didn't make another sound. When Bai Angguo thought that Mu Ziking and the others had nothing to do, when he was about to say something, he saw Wei Ran take out a document. She immediately raised the paper in her hand with a cold face. This document is the land division certificate signed by the southern border base, and it clearly states that Yehi Island no longer belongs to the southern border since the day we stepped into the southern border. It is independently owned by my brother. This document with the Great Seal of the southern border base has never been made public, so Bai Angguo thought that the division of Yehi Island was just a private agreement between Sheng Guanling and Mu Ziking, One of the old chiefs, Zhao, stood up abruptly. Pointing at Muziking angrily, "You guys must have forged this yourself. During the few months you have been in charge of the southern border, the great seal of the southern border has been in your hands, so you can do whatever you want." The other two chiefs also stood up and echoed Chief Zhao. Bai Anguo also stood up, squinting his half-drowned eyes and flashing cruel intentions. "Mr. Mu, even if this document was signed by Ah Ling and you, it can prove that it is true, but as long as if you disagree, it will not take effect." Mu Zikang listened to Bai Anguo's words. Suddenly he, who was always indifferent, lowered his head and smiled coldly. Slowly opened the eyelids, revealing dark, cold eyes. In the southern border, Mu Zikang's face was stern, and the coldness escaped his thin lips. "What are you three?" This sentence completely tore apart the seemingly harmonious scene. The faces of Bai Anguo and the others suddenly turned ugly. Mu Zikang dared him. "How dare you speak to them like that?" Old Chief Xiao slapped the table hard and shouted angrily, "Mu Zikang, you are only a temporary substitute. You dare to talk to us like this. You must know that Shangguan Ling has to be respectful to us." Mu Zikang slowly standing up, Wei Ran and Gu Ming followed suit. He stared at Bai Anguo with cold eyes and said coldly, "I'm not Shangguan Ling, I won't be nice to you. If you obey me, then everyone will be safe. I will also look at Shangguan Ling's face. Yes, you can also settle down in your peaceful old age." Bai Anguo's heart skipped a beat. He felt that his words had other meanings, and his wrinkled, half-drooped eyelids raised, "Settling us. What do you mean?" "It means literally." Wei Ran kindly explained with a smile, "If you don't make noise, then you should be treated as you are now. If you have to make noise, then you must follow what system is in the base now, and in the future." Bai Anguo now he stopped pretending and looked at Mu Zikang furiously. "Why do you say such things? You are no longer the interim leader." "Yes, I am no longer the interim leader." Mu Zikang stepped aside and paced casually, with his trouser pockets in his head and sideways eyes, with a cold expression on the corner of his mouth, "Because from today on, I will be the absolute leader of the southern border base." Bai Anguo sneered. "Mu Zikang Cheng, what strength do you have to say such things? When it comes to people, you are the few people behind you. Yes, you were in control of the Weapons Research Institute before, but not necessarily now." Then he shouted loudly, "Come in." Suddenly, more than 20 people rushed in from the outside and surrounded Mu Zikang and his party with guns. He had already placed his people in various departments in the base, just waiting for this day. And in order to increase his chances of winning, he even gave Cheng Shuxian his own daughter. He exchanged his daughter for the people who were ambushing in the desert outside the southern border base. And what did Mu Zikang use to fight him? Mu Zikang still looked calm and unhurried. He said coldly, "Nowadays, you are the only ones who don't even know the situation of the southern border base." "Is you?" Bai Anguo, who was about to speak, was interrupted by a knock on the conference room door. Immediately after pushing the door open, it was Bai Anguo's guards. He hurriedly walked towards Bai Anguo, bent down and said a few words in a low voice. Bai Anguo's expression changed suddenly. "Send both signals." "Yes, Chief." The guard immediately went to the window and walked out. He took out 2 flares from his waist and fired them out. 2 yellow and red lights flashed in the air, representing the people from Bai Anguo in the base and the people from Juzhong base, Ace and the people from Juzhong base in the desert outside the base respectively. At this time the 2 signal flares were sent out, which meant to tell the 2 parties to attack at the same time.